Matt Reeves' comments about The Batman Part 2 make the theories about one major DC villain look far less likely to come to fruition in its story.
Bummer. Huh? This is a bummer, man. That's a bummer.
The Batman cemented the franchise's place in DC history by providing a stellar look at the Dark Knight and took the gritty tone audiences have seen in many Batman adaptations and adding its own distinct spin to it, with the world itself and Robert Pattinson's performance as the iconic DC hero being much praised. As a result, the hype for the movie sequel is considerable, especially given the Batman's ending. With this excitement comes a number of theories regarding the Batman 2 story and the figures that will appear within. The matter of who will be the villain for the Batman Part 2 has been a considerable subject of focused speculation, with some names becoming the main picks for fans when it comes to who they want to see or expect to appear in the upcoming DC release. However, one of these theories now looks very different based on comments made about the franchise and its impending story.
Say it in English, Doc. Spare me your medical mumbo-jumbo.
In an interview with SFX magazine via Comic Book Movie, the Batman director and writer Matt Reeves opened up about what to expect from the DC movie sequel. Reeves stated that we might push to the edge of fantastical, but we would never go into full fantastical. It's meant to feel quite grounded. This appears to greatly reduce the chances of seeing Batman's antagonist transforming Mudman in the sequel, since some of the core elements of the character's story tend to stay inherently within the more fantastical side of the Dark Knight's overall DC lore. This, combined with the assurance that the Batman Part 2 will dig into the epic story about deeper corruption, makes the prospect of seeing the focal villain be Clayface seem something of a dire one. Though there are approaches that could craft a more grounded Clayface, it's hard to see how these could blend into a plot about deeper corruption in Gotham as effectively as other figures could. Indeed, the bonus time that would need to be dedicated to ensuring this version of the figure was clearly not as larger than life could actively hamper the movie's ability to focus on the story at hand. Notably, Reeves also mentioned during his interview with SFX magazine that this approach doesn't mean that you won't see characters that people love. That's exactly what we want to do. Gentleman Ghost is probably pushed a bit too far for us to be able to find a way to do, but there is a fun way to think about how we would take characters that might push us over a bit to the fantastical and find a way to make sense of that.
Well, I gotta tell you, Brian, I'm relieved to hear you say that.
As such, dialing Clayface's story back a bit, having him not be made out of clay but perhaps instead having the name simply allude to his ability to disguise himself, would veer into territory that could make the character closer to what Matt Reeves ascribes for the Batman series. Drawing from some of the earliest depictions of the character, which saw actor Basil Carlo simply be able to change his face and not his entire body, could help set up a grounded depiction. As it stands though, this also requires removing or altering a lot of the most interesting qualities of the Clayface villain mantle. With this in mind, the main DC Universe timeline may be a better place for the next live-action depiction of this specific villain, especially since it could use the wealth of lore surrounding the title, and the many figures who have been Clayface throughout the years in a more detailed and likely less grounded capacity. Matt Reeves' comments about the Batman 2 exploring Gotham's corruption and going into places Bruce Wayne couldn't even anticipate in the first one has raised the prospect that the villain for the sequel is none other than the Court of Owls. The Court, a sinister faction of Gotham's elite who have existed for essentially as long as the city, are naturally perfectly fitting for the story of the Batman Part 2 and would be a solid choice to ensure the second chapter of the story continues on from the themes and the story beats of the first.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Not only would the group be easy to tie into Bruce Wayne's own life and potentially give the Wayne family an even more questionable past depending on how tied to the group they could be, they would also present the Dark Knight with an opposing force who he has to use his wits against to overcome. However, that doesn't make the Court of Owls the only possible choice of villain for The Batman Part 2. Figures like Hush, Scarecrow and Hugo Strange, who have more grounded stories and that match a gritty plot exploring corrupt figures and their influence on Gotham, are all viable candidates for the potential antagonist for The Batman 2, and the ending of the original movie supports the idea that one or more villain may indeed feature in the second chapter of the story. Whatever the case, The Batman Part 2 is sure to have an engaging and suitably challenging antagonist for the Dark Knight to face, even if the theories about Clayface having this role are looking less likely.
Oh, man!